Baruch Hashem, it is day number 228 of our daily study of Rambam, Sefer HaMitzvos. And in the 3 chapters a day of Mishnah Torah, we are continuing in Hilchas Tumas Eichel Mashkin, the laws of impurity sustained by food and drink, chapters 13, 14, and 15. And as mentioned in previous days, we have the same mitzvah over and over again while we are studying these laws, because there's just one mitzvah represented by these laws. Positive Commandment 98. And that is the laws of impurity of food and drink. We shared with you yesterday the idea that every halacha, every Jewish law has behind it spiritual mechanics that are taught in the teachings of Jewish mysticism. And yesterday we learned a little mystical insight that has to do with these laws. So I'm going to continue that. I'll share another insight with you. We explained this counterintuitive concept that impurity always follows holiness. Impurity is always looking to parasitically take energy from holiness. So when something becomes holy, that's when it becomes susceptible to impurity. We've discussed this concept in the past. So in order for food to become susceptible to impurity, one of the preconditions is it has to become wet. We actually mentioned that a few days ago. But what does it represent spiritually? Remember, when it becomes holy, something that's holier is going to be more at risk to impurity. So how does becoming wet symbolize becoming more holy? So liquid represents holiness in a few different ways. One is the idea that water always seeks the lowest level. Water always goes downward, right? Like you can pile up solid things, a bunch of bricks or bales of hay or whatever. You can stack them, but you can't stack water. Water always goes down. That's the idea of the high going to the low, and that's a property of holiness. Torah is compared to water for that reason, that it's the highest of wisdoms, and yet it always translates downward in ways that we can learn it and relate to it. Another property of water is, for instance, when you drink water, there's no nutrients in water, but water is what carries all the nutrients to be absorbed by your body. And that's a property of holiness, the idea of integration, that something should actually be absorbed. It should affect you. Another property of liquid that is representative of holiness is the idea of transferability. If you touch something dry and then you touch another thing, you don't transfer the one thing to the second thing. But if you touch something wet and then you touch another thing, then you transfer that wetness to the other thing. And that's the idea of being infectious in a good way. The idea of things that are holy have a tendency to be shared with others and transferable. So all of these properties of liquid are representative of properties of holiness. And that's why symbolically, when the food becomes wet, it's like an endeavor in life that becomes imbued with holiness. And then, of course, it becomes susceptible to impurity, because the forces of impurity are always looking to rush into that type of situation to get their fix. You get that? You follow that, sort of? Okay, we have one more day with this mitzvah, and I'm going to try to share with you tomorrow also another mystical insight. We'll see you then, God willing.